How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, just relaxing on one of my few nights off this month.
Hey, that's good considering people working so much and crazy. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have some time off, so it does not hurt. Um,
Yeah.
so a few days ago, you posted on your Facebook on for people to send their questions to you and me on what the questions should be asked, and we're gonna start with those questions first.
Okay.
Here's the first question, and this was sent to you. The question is: do you think being skilled in the ring physically or having well-developed character creates a better fan base and being a great wrestler?
Well, having a fan base and being a great wrestler can come from both. You could be a great wrestler in the ring and have great skill, but if you have no personality, nobody's going to want to be around you. They'll think that your work is great, but you'll be boring. Because I know plenty of people that have great skill in the ring, but they can't get their personality through. So it's kind of a mixture of both. You can have a great personality and get over with the fans, but be a terrible wrestler, and you can make something of yourself that way too. I mean, there's quite a few wrestlers that have become very famous, and they have no skill as wrestlers. But then at the same token, if you're a great wrestler and have no personality, it's very rare for you to make it anywhere because you don't have a fan base. Nobody wants to be around the person that's boring.
Do you think
So,
do you think that the reason that there's a lot of wrestlers, whether it's indie or professional, do you think the reason that maybe they don't have the complete package is it because maybe how they were trained or how the promoters present them, give them suggestions of what they should do as far as their character and so forth?
well, character can come with training, but some people just don't have character at all. But in the same token, with training in general, with the wrestling aspect of it, your trainer is a big part of that. They need to teach you, and you kind of need to teach yourself as well by watching wrestling and learning what people like and what the crowd responds to. Kind of like I was talking with Chavo Guerrero this past weekend, and he's like, if the crowd's not into it, he told the whole locker room, if the crowd's not into it, then why are you doing it? You need to change it, because if the crowd's not into it, they're not going to pay attention, and the crowd's the one who's paying to come to the shows, and that's how the promoters are paying you. So it's, yes, in training, there's not a lot of trainers that focus on the personality part and on that part. It does need to be worked on though in training, so that can be part of it. But there's some people that just naturally have it too.
Well said. Here's another question that was sent. This one was sent to me, and I'm just going to say exactly what it says.
Okay.
And the question is, what are your long-term goals in the business, and to what level would you like to take your career? Giggly.
Oh.
Again, I'm just that's the correct. That's exactly
I
what.
know who sent that. So, well, long-term goals right now, it's just to, and this might sound bad to some people, but I have a full-time job and I love my job. I'm a nurse outside of wrestling, and I love it. But at the same token, I've been a wrestler longer than I have a nurse. And if I had a chance to work and wrestle for my work, I'm not quite sure what I would do yet. I'm not at that point yet, so I haven't had to go there. But I am wrestling a lot, and I'm getting paid for it, and it is a perspective I need to think about. So I haven't actually sat down and completely thought about that. And if I had a chance to go WWE, I probably would, or TNA. I would probably jump at the chance. It's just that's not there right now. I'm right now enjoying myself traveling and just getting my name out there, because there are people that just stay in the independents, but they travel for it, and they don't go to WWE or TNA, and they're fine with that. And I'm okay with that, but at the same time, if I had that chance, I'm not going to say no.
It's definitely understandable, you know. I mean, just because wrestlers for the indie scene don't make it to the big leagues, it doesn't, you know, take away from what they've done, what they accomplish, how far they have come as far as their first match is concerned. I mean, some wrestlers on the indie scene have shown that they can have a good career and not make it to the big leagues. It's just maybe the opportunity wasn't right or whatever, or maybe it's politics, maybe it's just something else.
Maybe they just don't want to. I mean, look at Casey Carlisle. She's NWA Women's Champion, and she travels constantly. She's not in WWE, she's not in TNA, but I'm pretty sure if you're an independent wrestling fan, you know who she is.
I've had a chance to interview Casey several times, and I jokingly say this. I'm like, you're the busiest female wrestler out there, because every time I look at her website, she's always on the road somewhere. One week she's in North Carolina, the next year be in Virginia. I mean, yeah, she's definitely a testament of someone that's doing pretty well for herself on the indie scene.
Definitely. And I'm kind of working on that. My goal for this year was to wrestle in 3 new states, and next weekend I'm actually going to accomplish that. Colorado was a new place for me to wrestle this year, and I loved it there. I'm trying to make it out there again. And then on the 8th, I'm wrestling in Nebraska, and then on the 9th, I'm wrestling in Iowa. I've never wrestled in those states, and I've met my goal for the year of what I wanted to do personally. And, I mean, I hope there's more than just that, so I'm going to push my goal and raise my standards and try for another one. But it's just that you've got to get your name out there to be able to be booked in these other states, and that's my goal for right now, I guess.
That's good, you know, expanding yourself, getting yourself out there. I mean, sometimes wrestlers want to be stuck in the comfort zone. They want to stay in the same city, same company, and not get themselves out there. And then there's people like you and Casey and others that's willing to travel far, that's willing to face new people and introduce themselves to new crowds and stuff, and show them, hey, you know, we need to book this woman more. She wants to make a name for herself in other areas.
Definitely.
So, how did you start becoming a professional wrestler? How did that start off for you?
How did that start? Okay. Well, ever since I can remember, have my earliest memory, I've watched wrestling. I've been around wrestling. I remember being a little girl, going to WCW and WWF shows with my dad. I remember watching it weekly on TV, and me and my dad wrestling around on the living room floor, telling my dad, Daddy, I'm going to be a wrestler one day. And so when I was 18, I was actually living in Arkansas, and I went to my first wrestling independent show. And I introduced myself to the people, and I told them I want to be a wrestler. And so this is not too long after I turned 18. And I started training that day. They didn't charge me anything. They just started teaching me. And I will tell you what, that first day sucked. It sucked so bad, but it was one of those things like, this is what I want to do. It hurt. The next day I could not get out of bed. I literally laid in bed all day, not being able to move. And then when I was able to get out of bed, I'm like, let's go do it again. And so I trained out there for a little while for a guy that that had been in wrestling for 25 years. And then I moved back to Texas, and so I'd stopped training for a while, and I got back into training in, I think it was end of 2005, early 2006. So the beginning of 2005 is when I originally started training. And then I didn't have my first match until 2006 because I had stopped training for a while.
Well, here's what I want to know now that you brought up how you and your dad, you know, like wrestling, attending shows, things like that. What was his reaction when you told him that, hey, I'm going to be a wrestler?
When I like actually started training and all that, he didn't believe me until I invited him to a show, and he came and watched me. And he's very supportive of it. My family's very supportive of it. As long as I get, I take care of things in my personal life, my bills are paid. That's also why I can't travel as much as I'd like to, because I have a job besides that. Like I said, I'm a nurse, and I work some weekends. So I would love to travel more, but I have to, take care of my bills, because wrestling does give me a little bit of money, but not enough to live off of, unfortunately. But my mom has a store, and when I start selling T-shirts, she wants to sell T-shirts for me. My mom tries to promote me to as many people as she can, and gives out my Facebook all the time, and so yeah.
Who do you consider as influences in your wrestling career? It could be anyone from the indie scene. It could be anyone on the pros. Who do you consider as your influences?
My influences? Well, I guess when growing up, when I was little, I was obsessed and loved Undertaker. I still love him. I think he's great. He gets the crowd into everything he does. I mean, when you see the Undertaker, you know who he is. You know what's going to happen. You know he has a presence. And I never really looked up to a lot of females until I got a little bit older and had to realize that I needed to watch more female wrestling. But I would say the Undertaker. I always looked up to him independently. Somebody I look up to. Let's see. I look up to anybody that can get places in this business. Like, I like a lot of the females here in Texas, like Athena. She's really good. Rachel Summerlin's not wrestling anymore. I got to wrestle with her a lot back in the day. She turned out to be really, really good, and then she's not wrestling anymore now. But a lot of the Shimmer girls, anybody that can get out there and do it and love it, and there's a lot of talented girls in the indies. It's hard to pick one.
Women wrestling nowadays has definitely evolved more than ever outside of the big leagues. It seems like people would rather watch the indie girls more than the pros, because considering there's a lot more ladies, from Shimmer to WSU, and then you got Shine Wrestling, which recently celebrated its 1 year anniversary, and that company continues to grow as it progresses. And you being a female wrestler, you're making a name for yourself. How do you feel about women wrestling in general, and how do you feel about the perception, I should say, about women's wrestling?
Well, the perception, I guess it depends on who you ask, because I know, like, there's a lot of shows that have actual women's wrestling on it. Like, it's actual wrestling, and it's great. And then there's promotions that want the fluff matches. They just want somebody that's going to come in and look pretty and prance around a little bit. Because there's actually a show that I'm booked for that they were asking me if I know any girls that would do that, because they wanted me to wrestle, and they wanted other girls to come in and have secondary matches that pretty much like girls prancing around in bikinis. To people that actually respect wrestling, and that women's wrestling is great, and it can be great, but there are people that don't like women's wrestling because they've seen, excuse my language, the crap that's been put out there. And this goes for anybody. This goes for females or males, any wrestling. It's hard to get booked on shows. Like, I don't wrestle very often in Dallas. There's places that I won't wrestle, and not just Dallas, this is everywhere, because there's somebody that they can book for cheaper, but they're not really trained properly, and they're not as entertaining, or that, they're not actually wrestling. They're not working. They're not doing what we were trained to do. And but they will get booked over somebody else because they don't expect as much money. But then again, you also get what you pay for. So I think that's where a lot of disrespect comes from women's wrestling, is people are booking people because it's cheaper and not looking at the skill set.
You know, in other words, looks is definitely going to get some people far, you know, and they're going to end up getting exposed, and, you know, the crowd's not going to be into it, and fans not going to be into it. They're going to feel like they wasted their money for this, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of hard-fought women out there that's, you know, busting their butt, and they get overlooked by some other people, and I think that's very unfortunate, because there's a lot of talented females out there, but they just get overlooked, and that's a damn shame. That's a flat out damn shame.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what do you like the most of being a wrestler? Is it the fan interaction, competing, hanging with your peers in the locker room, traveling? What do you like the most of being a wrestler?
The most? I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I guess fan interaction is probably the best. Like, when you go out there, and a lot of it's, I'm not a baby face very often, and it's a little strange for me sometimes, but even going out there and getting people riled up any way you can, if you're face or you're heel, getting people riled up and experienced in the show. Like, that's the thing that you get from indies that you don't get from WWE. They get to experience you more. You get to interact with them more. That's what's fun. That is amazingly fun. Like, I've gotten death threats at shows.
Oh my goodness.
And it's funny. Because it's only the one person that kind of freaks out, but everybody else is like, "Wow, you know how to get people riled up." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's my job." But getting people riled up and interacting with people, I think, is the best part of it. I really love traveling too. Unfortunately, lately the whole traveling part hasn't really helped, because I get to travel, but I'm only there for such a short amount of time. I don't get to see the places that I'm going, but hopefully that'll change soon. And I'm actually trying to work on something where I take a vacation from work and make it a wrestling vacation. So maybe I'll get to do more of the traveling.
I get where you're coming from as far as, you know, interaction, you know, whatever you got to do to get the fans' reaction, cheers and jeers. But that death threat, I mean, I get it. Well, wrestlers got to have thick skin. But, I mean, death threat, that's a certain line that fans cannot cross.
Well, you also got to think how serious some of these people are. I mean, I was told to leave early because she did want to try to fight me, but I never said I never cussed at her. I never said anything that was too out of line. It's just, you know, she really got into it, and it so happened that, you know, I just did my job a little too well, I guess. So, you know, and in that type of situation, you just kind of take yourself out of that element. You just kind of go to the other. Like, I was just the manager that night. I just went to the other side of the ring and kind of stopped bothering with her. I didn't mess with her anymore the rest of that night. That was enough. I said one thing to her, and that was it. She was done, over with. And but even the other fans, like, they added me on Facebook, and they're like, "That was great. You know, we need more people that can do stuff like that here, because they want that interaction." Like, yeah, she was a little mad, but I'm probably sure she's over it now, you know. But that's my job, is to get people riled up. If I'm a heel, I'm supposed to get them angry at me. They're supposed to hate me. And I mean, I know people that go to Mexico and they legit have real death threats. I mean, sometimes it happens.
I guess so. I mean, regardless of, there's always going to be an idiot that's going to say things that just cross the line. But hey, you handle yourself like a G. So more props to you. So for people that wants to get in touch with you, social media wise, Facebook or Twitter, why don't you go ahead and promote your links?
Okay, well, my Facebook, all you have to do is look up MissDiss Lexia, all is one word, and the same thing for Twitter. I'm on both all the time, constantly. If I'm not on, it means I'm probably asleep. Even at work, if I'm not busy at work, I'm online. If I don't answer, it just means that I'm a little busy, but add me and I'll eventually get back to you. If you're wanting to book me, just message me on there, on Twitter, whichever. I usually just use Facebook for everything. I used to have an email, but I don't have the password anymore. But it's just MissDiss Lexia, MissDiss Lexia.
MissDiss Lexia. I got it.
Yes.
So it was great chatting with you. Thank you for joining me for this interview. And everybody keep an eye out on her on the Texas area and the Colorado, on Iowa. And go check out her social network links on Facebook and Twitter. She'll keep you posted. Who knows? She may be coming to a city near you. She did say in an interview she wants to get herself out there. And I guess the only way to make that happen is tell your local wrestling promoter to book her. And who knows? She'll come near you, and hopefully no more death threats.
Yeah, no, none of those, please.
Yeah. Thank you again for being on the show, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This will conclude the interview.